Welcome and step into the minds of addiction and recovery. Hello, I'm your host, Brett C. It is an honor to bring into light one of the darkest aspects of our society, addiction. With 20 years of active addiction and 20 years of sobriety, I hope to bring together all listeners on a journey of inspiration and education. With my co-hosts Jared F. and Rich J., we will be sharing our experience, strength, and hope for all listeners to enjoy and have fun with. Now, F3 Recovery brings you the Super Sober Podcast. All right, welcome to episode number 5 of the Super Sober Podcast. It's been a minute since we've been on the show here. It's been about actually a month and a half or almost 2 months since we ran the last episode number 4. Just want to let you know that we have not forgotten about you guys. We've been having people come out of the woodwork and asking us when episode 5's coming and how many episodes we're doing a month and all that. The thing is, though, it was vacation time for a few of us. So Rich and I went on vacation. We left Jared at home to take care of the kid and everything like that. So I went on a actual vacation of a lifetime thing. We went over, did the British Isles cruise. It was unbelievable over there. We did England, Ireland, Scotland, and went around the Horn out there and really got to spend some time with the family. And it was, we're celebrating our son graduating from college over here at Long Beach State as a chemical engineer. So we had a great vacation. And we didn't get back to doing the podcast as quick as we would have liked to, because also Rich went on vacation, and he'll be sharing that in just a little bit too. But here on episode 5, we're ready to jump back into recovery and start talking about things. First 4 episodes, we've talked about barriers to recovery. We've talking about early morning routine, what it looks like, and why it's a disease, and why it's categorized as that, and to basically give us a firm foundation of where we are in recovery when we first get into the program. So now we're going to start jumping into taking action. And what does that look like? So basically, my name is Brett, and I'm going to qualify in here for my sobriety date and my credentials and everything, and then we'll let Jared and Rich share about that. My name is Brett C. My recovery date is 4/21/03. I've been a registered nurse for coming up 17, 18 years now. I started off as an LVN, became an RN. I'm an RN with a BSN now, and work in treatment for the last 8.5 years. Worked everywhere in a hospital, and I'll be elaborating on that a little bit more. So then I'll move over to Jared.
Hey, welcome back. My name's Jared. Sobriety date is 4th of July, 2015. My current credential is a CADAC 2 and internationally certified substance abuse counselor. So I've been in the industry for, I think I started in 2006 and spent some time away from that and did another career for a little bit, worked as a paramedic and worked with fire and that kind of stuff. And been back working in the industry treating substance abuse since late 2015. Yeah.
Nice. And my name's Rich, and my recovery date is October 5th, 2013. I work in treatment in a substance abuse / mental health facility. There's dual diagnosis there. And then I've worked in treatment and facilities such as that since 2014. I'm also in nursing school right now, and I teach boxing on the side as well.
All right. So now that we gave you our sobriety dates and everything, and we're going to be going through 3 different subjects today, it's going to be a special episode. We got our first representative of the Super Sober Podcast that's going to be helping us with a first commercial. We're going to be plugging that one for you guys. So people are liking what we're doing. And we're getting good feedback from the community on the podcast. So just as long as we reach some people and give some sound advice, what Jared was sharing before and everything. So now that we've gone through prepping up to this point, we're going to get into action here, because we know that AA is a program of action. And if you're in action, you're in practice. It's also a program of practice. You're going to most likely stay sober another day. So here we are practicing our steps and everything. I've been working in a hospital for I don't even know how long now, in all different areas in the hospital. And specifically, anytime you get an assignment, if you're in the ER or med surg, telemetry, ICU, wherever, you're going to have an addict or an alcoholic as one of your patients. So coming in and looking at it from a medical standpoint, I'd like to share that AA has been around for 88 years, going on year 88, and we have a treatment modality for addiction. Just like any disease, we got diabetes or congestive heart failure. We're going to be doing a lot of teaching as what we do on this podcast. So anybody, like when we're working in treatment, we're doing a lot of education, especially in nursing. We're right there at bedside. The doctor's going to give you a treatment modality. We're going to print it up. We're going to go over this education process with any disease, right? So just know whether it is any part of a disease. I've been educating people for many, many years on this kind of thing, not only with this disease, but many other ones, that non-compliance for any disease is 50%. Now, whether you come in for diabetes, and then I'm going to give you all this stuff, I'm going to teach you how to use a glucometer, teach you how to administer yourself insulin, and give you ranges to go on, and then a sliding scale and all these kind of things, that people just are not going to be compliant with it. And then we're going to see people come in over and over again with the same disease process of their non-compliance. So just know that non-compliance is up to 50% no matter what disease you get. So non-compliance for this disease is up to 80 to 90%. So we're going to go ahead and show you your signs and symptoms. You come into treatment, or you can be watching this podcast, and we're going to explain all these different things. We're going to be giving you education to do it. And no matter what, non-compliance for this one, it's a non-compliance issue into 2023. There's millions of people all over the place on this planet, everywhere, staying compliant with their disease process, staying sober, clean, one day at a time. So the stats are out there that only 2 out of 10 people will stay sober and being compliant with their disease process with this one. But I think the program, when it gets into it though, and it says, there's a lot of things to be said, but this program works 100% of the time if you work it. It's not for those that need it or want it, it's for those that work it. So here we are sharing in our 5th podcast about the non-compliance that's happening out there. This is nothing new out there. And it's still, people have no idea what we're doing. They still call the treatment centers and they're all, what do we do with little Joey? And it's like, what do you mean, what do you do with them? It doesn't take long to Google some stuff, or maybe check out the Super Sober podcast or all the other people out there that are just giving good, solid advice, whether it be through podcast or person to person or in meetings and all that stuff. So now we're going to move forward with this podcast and get into action stuff. We're going to be going over meetings, sponsorship, and then we're going to go over the doctor's opinion over the next 45 minutes or so. So I just wanted to lead with that. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that kind of way of sharing about this disease process, but that's the way that I feel about it. And that's what I've actually seen in all my years of being a medical professional and working in hospitals and treatment centers and with people, sponsoring different people in AA and helping people out. I just see people get compliant with the process and then they stop being compliant with it.
Yeah, it's tough too because it is like a disease of the brain. It's difficult because there's cognitive emotional problems there that make it easier to be non-compliant with this type of disease. And like you said, the compliance is up to 80 or non-compliance is up to 80 or 90% versus in the hospital, you see other diseases and maybe we're averaging around 50%. But it's just like if you were to tell somebody that has, major depressive disorder, if they exercise, that studies show that people who exercise regularly it's one of the ways to combat depression, but getting them to do that is difficult. And that's because they have depression. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's easy to say that this is what works and here's the pill that you need to take, but taking the pill is the really, really difficult part. And so, I believe that's why the non-compliance is up so high. People know, a lot of times people know, or sometimes people don't. And that's part of what we're here to do, is to educate people and give them information, like bare bones basics of recovery. So that way they can arm themselves with that information and then hopefully go and use it. However, even being armed with the information, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see that compliance. And it's just a tough thing to deal with. It's a very difficult disease to deal with.
Yeah, I get to work right alongside this guy. We work in a hospital, and I am not kidding you when I say there are patients. We got some people in there right now that I have seen probably over 10 times, right? And they come in, and these are people that have the knowledge at this point. They know the suggestions have been made from the physician, from the nursing staff, treatment teams recommending that they follow through with some kind of a plan. And some at points with some of these people, they've been in a position where they've been in enough pain and had enough desperation to say, okay, I'm going to do it this time. And I'm thinking of one guy in particular. And, each time I've seen him since, a little bit worse, a little bit more depressed, worse medically, mentally worse, more depressed, more pain, all this stuff. And it's scary because they reach a point to where we go to talk to them, and it's like, they don't even, the counseling staff, they don't even want to talk to us anymore because they know what we're about. They know what we're going to suggest. Hey, what are we doing this time? Right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to see us, avoid us like the plague. So yeah, the non-compliance piece, and it's especially screwed up with this disease process because, like you're saying, the mental side of this thing is how do you work with a disease that tells you don't have it?
Serious,
And so it doesn't come through sometimes as like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. It's this whole dysfunctional cognitive gymnastics that their brains are doing. And ultimately where they land is, I'm not going to do what I need to do to stay sober. And it's scary. Just a lot of
nope.
Yep. All day long.
Nope.
Yep.
No.
Coming to group.
Nope.
You're going to follow through the treatment plan? Nope.
Denied too.
Doing it, right? So, and he's talking about 12-step programs in the rooms and all that. Well, I'm sure we're going to talk more about that right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we're going to move right into, let's take action. What are we going to do? How are we going to get around people? First off, we're going to actually ask you to get into the real world of recovery, which is going to meetings. And meetings is a very powerful place to be, but it's going to be chock full of nervousness, anxiety, and our preconception of what everything that it looks like. Or maybe people have been to meetings and of course your disease is always going to be pushing back. It's like, these guys suck. You shouldn't be over here. Oh my gosh. And you're going to always be listening for the not similarities and everything. It's a huge learning curve. Yes. But for me, when I first started going to meetings back in 1999 through drug court in 2000-ish, I was very blessed with, I didn't have a barrier like that. So of course, when you first get into treatment, we're going to be offering you things. They're going to tell you to do a 30-30, a 60-60, a 90-90. And what that is doing 30 meetings in 30 days, 60 meetings in 60 days, 90 meetings in 90 days. And you're all, oh my God, what an order. I can't go through with it. But there's a magic around the percentages also that they teach that after 90 days and to getting new habits is what we're looking at, right? How the only way to get flipping new habits is the way that you get new habits is to flip and get rid of and breaking the old habits, right?
Yeah. So real quick, I'm just wondering, so what are the most common things? Because I really want to try to drop into what a newcomer's feeling, right? When they walk in, if you're, okay, someone's like, hey, you should probably check out going to some meetings. Maybe they go to a meeting. What's the most common thing that you hear from the newcomer that then becomes non-compliant, decides they're not going to go to meetings anymore?
Oh yeah, the number one is all they did was talk about drinking and using, and it made me want to drink and use.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Just being judgmental of the people that are in there.
Okay.
So you can come in there completely broken and somehow feel like you're superior to them and you don't belong there.
Okay. Wait, can you talk about that a little further, please? Because this is pure gold.
Yeah, I mean, that was me. So, yeah, I go to a meeting, my life is in shambles, and I see these people and I think they're lame, and I can't for me, it was difficult it just seemed boring. And I was really young at this time when I was feeling this way. And I also didn't think that I still also thought that I had a million other directions I could go, and I didn't have to be there. So that's the other thing that was going through my head. And so with that going through my head, it made it easy to be like, there's no way I'm committing to this or these people because this is lame. Like straight up, that's how I used to think. I was like, this is lame and it's no fun. And also the root of that is that it's a big change. And it's like, that means if I associate with these people, I'm not going to be associating with these people anymore.
Right.
And who am I without that? Who am I without these people? Who am I with this?
That's terrifying.
Yeah. This is going to change my identity completely. And I'm terrified of that because I'm holding on to, I don't know who I'd be without the identity that I'm walking in here with. So it gets deep.
Oh, for sure.
You know, but essentially at the end of the day, I'm judging these people and then it talks me out of the room.
Right. Exactly. So, the number one thing that I hear from these guys and gals that I work with when they come in, when we make that kind of suggestion is, oh no, that's not for me. I've been to those meetings before. All people do is sit around and complain about their problems. Right. So the only reason I bring this up is I want to, really pass along, like if you're new and that's you, I completely relate. I did the same thing. He shared he did the same thing. He had a lot more pressure on him to where that kind of stuff really didn't matter. Like it's like, hey, you're actually you weren't necessarily suggested to go to meetings. You were.
Yeah, you're going to get your
meetings,
or there's going to be these consequences.
Right.
So either you can remain a free man or not.
Right.
So it's up, the ball's in your court. But for me, I actually liked going to meetings and stuff. And I was like hearing people share and it was like, wow. I'm like, oh, okay. And it wasn't like, that wasn't any of my barriers. I've done a lot of 30s, 60s and 90s and stuff. And it finally sunk in though.
For sure.
Just for clarification, a 30 and 30 is 30 meetings in 30 days, 60 meetings in 60 days, just for people who don't know.
Okay. So I just need to finish this thought. So if that's you, that's good. But here's what I would encourage is there's this tendency to draw conclusions about this stuff before you've thoroughly given it a try. And we're in Long Beach right now. I don't know how many meetings a week there are in Los Angeles area, but I do know that there's over like 3,200 meetings a week in Orange County. So the point is please go until you have the experience that this man talked about, right? Go to a meeting until you find your tribe. They're out there, I promise you. Yeah. I've been to meetings and I've walked into the meeting and it's like, okay, this is going to be one of those meetings where I'm bringing something to the meeting. I'm clearly not here today on a spiritual plane to receive something from this meeting.
Right.
But I do have the ability to bring something to it. And that may happen a little bit further down the line for you, but go until you find your tribe and you will find your tribe. They're out there. I promise you.
Most definitely. There's so many different meetings to go to and everything. And the longer you stay sober, I remember when I first started getting sober, one of the links I wouldn't go to in recovery was an early morning meeting. And now that's evolved into mostly that's what I do. So, I mean, there's meditation meetings out there. There's guided book study meetings. There's all types of stuff. There's speaker meetings. There's everything is out there. We're so blessed here in SoCal that there's right down the street from here on Sundays is a really good meeting where they share and they have a speaker and all that stuff. And every at the end of the month, they do a whole, they feed everybody and there's
potluck
just a whole
or whatever.
bunch.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. There's men's stag meetings, women's stag, LGBTQ meetings, and
young
everything.
People meetings.
Young people. Yeah, it's all out there. So, I mean, if you haven't done it, like what Jared said, you haven't been to enough meetings. So don't just get the whole take of what AA or NA is or a meeting is or anything like that just from going to one meeting.
One of the great sayings that I heard is said, go to meetings until you like going to meetings. Because you're coming in there with a disease that doesn't want you there, right? Because like we talked about, it wants you to be non-compliant. And so it's going to tell you things that are going to make you be non-compliant when you go in there. And so it can come in many different forms. We've already heard a couple of them. And you talked about habit. So going to meetings until you like going to meetings, it'll happen.
Right.
It's just, you kind of have to point your vehicle in that direction or point your feet in that direction despite what your head's telling you to do, because your head is going to tell you not to go.
Right.
And it's going to give you 1,000 reasons not to go. And if you just go anyways and take that contrary action over and over and over and over again, you'll start to hear the message. And the message isn't going to be people complaining. It's going to be, there's going to be a message that you're going to hear. And the message is hope. And at the end of the day, one of those days you'll walk out of the meeting feeling a little bit hopeful.
Yeah. He mentioned that feeling. Yeah. I remember one of the first meetings I ever went to, and I was like young, probably 15 or 16 years old. I think I had like gotten really sick. Yeah, I drank too much. That was a whole story. But anyway, I ended up landing in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting up in Sonoma County. And there was a feeling that I got from the meeting, and it felt really good. I remember that. It was early on. So it must have been a pretty damn good meeting, right? And then real quick, how do you go to a meeting when you don't want to go to a meeting? And a really good thing to do, and you'll hear it if you go to meetings, is I would strongly encourage anyone that's like desperate and like, okay, I'm going to give this my all, go to a meeting and get a commitment. That's not talked about. Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like a commitment at a meeting are things like making the coffee at the meeting or being a greeter at the door, just shaking people's hands as they come through. Right. So really a lot of times with addiction and really the low self-esteem and all that stuff that tends to come with it, especially in the early days, we're more likely to do something for somebody else than we are for ourselves. And that's what a commitment will do. And a lot of these commitments are, I'm going to be doing this job at this meeting every week for the next 6 months, right? So essentially do 2 commitment stints, for lack of a better term. And next thing you know, you got a year of sobriety under your belt.
Right.
I'll tell you this, it's great. I'm so glad you brought that up because I mean, I'll keep it straight up. Like for I'd say the last 2 years, because of the way my life has been and just the way things have been with nursing school and everything else, I've been struggling with hitting my minimum number of meetings, which my minimum number of meetings, well, like Brett has a good saying. He tells me to go to 3 meetings a week because, what do you say?
2's too close to 1 and 1's too close to none.
Oh, so 3's the sweet spot.
Oh man.
So 3's the sweet spot. So for the last little while now, I've been hitting 1 a week, but I've been hitting that 1 because I have a commitment at that meeting. Yeah. And I even tried to give up my commitment about 6 months ago. And then everybody in the meeting was like, all right, Rich saying he wants to give up his commitment during the meeting, after the meeting. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, we don't want you to give up your commitment, dude, because we want to see you. Right. And they were like, let him keep the shit, And then so I was like, oh. And then it was one of those moments where it was like, what do I do here? Yeah. And I just I was able to listen to what I call my higher power speaking through them. And they're like, all right, I'll keep the fucking commitment,
right?
And now I'm there every week and I'm still there every week. And it keeps me there. And I'm telling you right now, sometimes I don't want to go, but because I have that stupid timer commitment, I'm just the timer, which means after somebody shares for 3 minutes, I hit the timer, it goes beep, 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 right? Yeah. That's all I do. That's it. And that shit keeps me showing up every single week.
You're there, yeah.
And then when I leave the meeting, I'm like, I feel good. I feel full of hope. I have that feeling you had. And like, it got me through. Yep. My disease didn't get to win that day,
exactly.
And it's that accountability piece. And on top of that, it also helps me feel like I'm a part of something bigger than myself. Like I'm like this is a part of my life and I'm integrated in it. I'm not just the person at the meeting with my toe in the water on the outside looking in, and early on, when I got my first sponsor, he like railroaded me into a commitment. And when I say that, he said, he pretty much when they said that there's a commitment available, he like grabbed my hand and raised it.
Right.
And said, Rich wants to be the key tag guy.
Yeah, that's voluntold.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, voluntold.
And I was like, dude, I was pissed, right? I was pissed. But I was just like, okay, my people pleasing. I was like, okay, sure. But I was pissed, And I did it anyways.
That's right.
I did it. And then I was terrified to speak in front of people, stand up in front of people, all that, because of the low self-esteem. And I grew so much from that commitment, having to interact with people and give them their key tags and hug them. And I also, but I felt like I was a part of something and I had been so removed from that for so many years through my addiction that it helped heal a part of my soul,
right?
That needed healing.
It will.
And so, I mean, there's commitments are one part of meetings, and it's amazing what they can do for a person.
Yeah. So, and I like sharing a lot of meetings these days just to get things inclusive. We're talking about a group that's an addiction survivors group. It's a self-help addiction survivors 12-step practicing group. So, I mean, as far as most of the people, when you go into a meeting, I went to one this morning, and it's like everybody's taking action and showing up and getting into a community, pushing against their old selves, getting new habits, new coping skills. Because if you don't get the new coping skills in the program to apply to your new life, you're going to apply your old coping skills to your new life, and it will fail.
Yep.
And you're going to go, oh, it didn't work. And it's like, well, did you work all the steps? Did you get through it? Did you act? Did you do anything that we were suggesting? Because this is a compliance thing we're talking about, how we segue into it. And it's like, now we're going to go to meetings, and it's hard to talk about one part of recovery without talking about all the parts. So it's kind of segmented as we go through these podcasts, but talking about meetings and what's another main reason why we go to meetings, to be a part of the community, about doing contrary action, getting commitments, and staying committed and accountable to change. And that is going to be what we're moving into our next area, which is talking about sponsorship. So how are you going to find a sponsor? You're going to be sitting in a meeting, and they're going to be talking about the steps. They're going to be talking about these big, huge pictures on the wall with 1 through 12 and the traditions and all these things. And it's going to be a lot to take in. But you're going to hear somebody, and then when the student's ready, right, the teacher's going to appear. And a lot of the time for me, we're going to move into sponsorship now, is my first sponsor was appointed to me when I was in my treatment program, and he got me through the steps. So, I mean, the program is the steps, right? So, I mean, if you're not working your steps or haven't worked through it, the only chip that we don't get in AA or NA or whatever is the chip that I think should be given when you're done with your sponsor. You stand up with your sponsor, and here's your 12-step chip. But they don't do that because it's always an accountability, right, of our own knowing thyself and being honest and truthful within. So it's not like a merit badge with the flipping Cub Scouts or anything like that.
Right.
But I mean, I feel that that's something that they should do. And then with sponsorship, you got somebody that already has been through it and is going to ease the process and the learning curve. So sponsorship helped save my life.
Yeah.
Period.
It's a mentor for you, right?
Right.
And I'm really glad you brought that up and made that transition right there. One thing you mentioned is going to morning meetings.
Right.
How many people that don't want to be sober are in a 6 a.m. meeting? It's a trick question. 0. Nobody that doesn't want to be sober is in a 6 a.m. meeting.
No, we're doing it.
You're doing it. And you're already pointing in the right direction for the day, right?
Right.
So meetings, very, very important. But what we're about to start talking about is where the program lives, right? And this is an important thing to talk about because, and I think I've addressed it on the podcast before, but if you do recovery well, it will actually start to work against itself. Like I'm looking at a guy right now that I remember, what was that? Working at Balboa, like 2017-ish.
Yeah.
Working support staff, talking about, man, dude, I think I want to go back to school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how do I do that? Like, I don't even know how I do that. And it's like,
dude, I didn't know what a credit hour was.
Right. Right. And so here we are now in 2023, a guy that is, has a full, beautiful life, is in nursing school, about to wrap that up with an RN and BSN, right? Talking about,
bro.
I can't get to as many meetings. And this is important stuff to understand, because people go through this. If you do this well, your life's going to take off, and you're not going to be able to do 30 meetings in 30 days. It's not going to happen. It's not in the cards. It won't be your reality. Okay. Luckily, the program can live in meetings, but meetings are not the program. And I know a lot of people that make that mistake, and they think because they're going to meetings, their program's strong, right? And that's not always the case. So we're going to start talking about what does it mean to work a program? Going to meetings is one aspect of working a program. Okay. An important one, albeit.
It's where it starts.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's where it starts.
Right.
But as we go down the path here, sorry, I just needed to jump in there and say that.
Good point.
Because there's some, whatever your higher power is, makes room when you're doing the right things and working a program for you to have a life. I mean, that's why we get sober, right? We get sober to have a life.
Right. Exactly. Like what you shared earlier, the program will give you a life that'll take you away from the program.
Right.
But hopefully it drops down from your mind into your heart, and you start changing all these different things. So when you're not able to get to meetings and to get into the fellowship kind of thing, you already know how it is to stay sober and what your barriers are and what triggers are and everything like that. I went through the same area where my life was so busy, I wasn't able to get to as many meetings and do things because my primary focus was building my new life. But I had the coping skills set in, and I had practiced them long enough. It was time for me to go to school and really start practicing that. What does it look like when I'm not able to? I mean, you always make time for what you make time for. You always have time for what you make time for.
It's true.
So time will expand and contract. But if it wasn't for my second sponsor, who I was sitting over when I had moved from the Inland Empire into Orange County, I was over at a meeting place, and he was sitting right next to me. And I had been going to meetings and getting acclimated to my new area. And we had talked, and he goes, "Do you have a sponsor?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." And he goes, "I'll be your sponsor." And he was my sponsor for a long time. And there's a whole story behind what happened with him, but he was my next level of what was going on. And I was super busy. I moved down here, and I was in school to be an LVN, and life was just happening. And if it wasn't for my accountability, and he was one of the ones that taught me about the 3 meetings a week, because 2's too close to 1 and 1's too close to none. And he was very cerebral, and I needed that. I'm super smart guy and all that kind of thing. I needed, and our higher power puts those kind of people in our life of who needs to be there and all that stuff. So with the sponsorship, you're just going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because so far, I mean, when in our addiction, we get so, it's just a lot. It's a big learning curve. So we need these mentors out there. And there's a lot of, just know that the sponsors are not perfect. And they have a lot of character defects, and they're working a program too. So, but the learning curve that when he took me through the steps the second time, I really needed that. And I had 2 different ways I had already been through the steps when I was done with him. So I had a good idea of how to do things. So I know that Jared has a book right here that he was going to start talking about a little bit on sponsorship.
So I was just going to say about sponsorship, like why do we have a sponsor? Why do we get a sponsor? And well, for one, we can't spot self-deception on our own. So there's that.
How are you going to use the same head that got you into the problem?
No, and you could put that a million ways. You could say, how are you going to fix a broken brain with a broken brain, right? Like if you're sponsoring yourself, you got an idiot for a sponsor. You heard that one, you know? But that's like the main reason we get a sponsor is because that outside perspective helps us sort through all of our own lies that we tell ourselves, all of that stuff we tell ourselves that's going to make us non-compliant to this program or this way of life that's going to help us achieve recovery. And so that's the main reason why you get a sponsor. And then what that sponsor is going to do for you, if it's a 12-step program, which is technically where the word sponsorship came from, they're going to take you through the 12 steps. And through the 12 steps, some people say that is the program, right? That's the meat and potatoes of the program. That's really where the program lives. And that's really how you learn to live this way of life, is through working those steps. And so for people who don't know what a sponsor does or what they're there for, that's essentially, generally speaking, that's what they're there for. They're not there to tell you, they're not there to make decisions in your life for you. They're there to give you feedback and allow you to make your own decisions. But they're there to support you. They're there to mentor you. They're there to be someone you can rely on. When I'm not in a meeting and I don't have all those people, I got Brett I can rely on. I got friends that I know in the program that I can rely on. But they're especially for people who lack trust in other people, especially coming from an addictive that lifestyle where you don't trust people and you learn how to be closed off to people. It can be that first person that you really open up to, and that opens that door for learning how to trust people and where you can start to heal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. So if you go into the rooms for a period of time, you'll hear a lot of different takes on what a sponsor is. I've heard everything from, I've heard sponsors tell a sponsor, look, I'm not here to be your friend. My only job is to take you through the steps. There's like this militant stance that certain people take. You do that to a guy like me, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. Excuse my language. Like I got no interest in that.
Do we got a beep on this thing here? No, go ahead.
Nope. Anyway, but it's part of that's true also, right? Like you get a sponsor to help walk you through the 12 steps, which is essentially, when it's all boiled down into its purest form, is a new way for us to live that doesn't involve being loaded and puts us hopefully on some sort of a spiritual plane to be of service and be the best human beings that we can be. And I for sure needed somebody to show me how to do that. Right. My parents did a really good job of instilling great values in me and all that kind of stuff, to be polite. And they taught me a lot of great stuff. And my addiction in its active form, I had to adopt new ways to survive an addiction that counteracted all those things that they taught me. So by the time I sobered up, I needed someone to show me this stuff. And that's this book. I was telling Brett about this. He had never seen it before, but this is a Hazelden book called 12-Step Sponsorship, How It Works. And it's got everything in it. And it's funny because this was, I don't know if the camera can see that or not, but anyway, there's a little picture and a note from my first sponsor here, Larry, and he's dead now, but this man was incredible. And so he gave this to me on my 18-month chip. And it says, from the outhouse to the penthouse in 18 short months. Yeah, it says, Jared, who would have ever thought 18 months is a huge miracle for guys like us? Don't ever give up. God bless, Larry. And it has the date. That was 4/3 of 2007. So, yeah, really good tool. Point being, not only did I need somebody to show me this stuff, I didn't know exactly how to work the steps. And in fact, I was not convinced on the steps, and I needed, I struggled with just about every one of them. And nor did I look at those steps and go, okay, yeah, if I do those things, I won't use again. Like I didn't even believe that was true. You know what I mean? So I needed someone to walk me through all this stuff, show me this stuff. And, at some point, hopefully we'll get my sponsor on here as a guest. But he's got
to meet this guy.
It'll be an emotional one for me. The dude's he's been sober over 30 years. He got sober real young, but
powerful. But
this guy's taken me through the steps, but so much more than that. So much more than that. He's a man, going from somebody that didn't trust and all that stuff like you were talking about to the relationship that I have with this dude today is we've done so much cool shit together. It's unreal. And that's what the program, that's where
Totally.
the program lives.
Totally.
Right. My second sponsor was, we became such good friends. We would work out every Saturday together.
Right.
Go to shows together, concerts and everything. That was a relationship that I miss to this day. He taught me how to use my mind. He was big on thought redirection and just so many different things. And he loved to take people through the steps. I mean, this man, his place over by the beach, I mean, if I was coming in to work a step, there was a person before me and there was a couple people after me. It was just kept on coming and going. And he was always big on, like, you're a newcomer for your first 5 years. You're new for your first 5 years. And when you get a sponsor, they're going to ask you to take action. So you have to take action. One of them would be to call me every night or call every day at a certain time, which is your time. Because if you don't call when you don't need to, you're not going to call when you need to. So
That's a fact.
So if you're not like in touch, but I mean, as we get older in the program and everything too, I mean, I have lots of different sponsors. I mean, my third sponsor passed away last year and he was unbelievably cool, man. But my second one went out after 24 years.
Damn.
And he died within 3. And what I took from him is that I'm just going to keep it new every day. Why can't I keep my life new and looking towards the future to living towards now? I don't drag the past with me anymore.
Right.
So I've already reconciled with all that stuff, and sponsorship is going to be, if your sponsor's not taking you through the steps and it's in this book and it's like that kind of thing, that's the sponsor's main job, is to get you into action and taking steps. If they're not doing that, then maybe you should look for another sponsor.
Right.
And it's pretty easy for me these days. When someone asks me to sponsor them, I look them in the eyes and I kind of do a little questionnaire these days, because if they find out that I'm in the medical field and then they're like all looking for a nursing medical background to help them adjust their medications or something, and that's not what I'm for.
That's what we don't do.
And it's like that. Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of learning curve with that. So there's 12 months, there's 12 steps. It's easy. We can do a step a month, right?
Yeah.
Right? We can do a step a month. We can do this. I mean, that's an easy on-track process, but you'll be amazed at how somebody won't be able to call you for a week straight, let alone 2 or 3 days.
Non-compliance.
Yeah. Non-compliance
Hey,
to the core.
simple.
Yeah.
But once you establish this relationship with this person and you see how they've lived, and when you actually see how they're living in the background and how things are at home or how they apply this to their life, that's where the attraction comes in.
Yes.
Where is the attraction of the program? How is this guy going in? But a lot of people are materialistic, right? And it's like, oh, well, this is what my sponsor has. And my sponsor, my second one, had material things, but it wasn't flashy on the outside. So I miss him to this day. I drive down and where his funeral was at the park and stuff. And so I honor him by teaching the same things. I can't teach the steps except for the ways that I've already been taught how to do it. But I'm going to be checking out this book. And anything more quick on sponsorship?
Well, I think
as we go to the next subject?
Yeah. So
All right, cool.
what do you look for in a sponsor and how do you get a sponsor?
All right, let's do it. Go ahead, share it.
Go for it. That's my question.
Well, so for how you get a sponsor, usually you're going to find that in a meeting. That's usually where you're going to see people, hear them speak, and that's where you get your first introduction to people, and it's where you find that attraction to certain people. But one of the biggest things is that your brain's going to want you to be non-compliant. So your brain's going to find reasons why you shouldn't ask people to be your sponsor. So it'll be like, you feel like you're asking somebody out on a date for the first time, right?
This is what I was looking for.
Super uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like, is he going to like me? You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it is, right? Or a big one is that you feel like you're inconveniencing them. Okay. But I'm going to tell you right now,
bother him.
hey, unless the guy just sucks, like, and I'm sure these guys can tell you, and I'll tell you right now, a person who has the ability to sponsor somebody is waiting for the opportunity to sponsor somebody. So by going into it with the thought of I'm inconveniencing this person, it's completely wrong. And that's a distorted way of thinking, because actually what you're doing is you're denying them an opportunity to be of service to somebody. And like you said about that sponsor you had that had people he was working steps with somebody every hour.
He loved it.
When a sponsor takes a sponsee through the steps, they're going through the steps again.
Right.
And there's this back and forth, this ping pong that happens between the sponsor and the sponsee,
Right.
where they're both benefiting. They're both getting deeper into their recovery through this dialogue that they're having about the steps and this perspective ping pong that they're having. And it's a beautiful, beautiful process. And so how do you get a sponsor? You ask them.
Okay.
No matter what your head tells you, you ask them.
Beautiful. All right. What do you look for? What are you looking for when you're
Someone that's worked all 12 steps, period, on that one. I mean, for me. So have they applied it? How long have they been sober? And that's not the most important thing, but definitely someone that's got some solidified recovery that seems to be happy, joyous, and free to a certain degree.
Somebody that's had a spiritual awakening,
Right.
that's going to try to get you to your own spiritual awakening.
Yep. And someone that's sharing something that resonates with you.
right.
So
Yeah. Very good. I just wanted to ask that because those are as a newcomer, that's the kind of stuff they're like, oh, what?
It's fundamental. It's
Hey,
fundamental stuff.
I have a question for the group,
yeah,
if
sure.
you don't mind.
Of course, this is our producer, Solomon. If you haven't met him yet, he's the man behind the scenes, and he's definitely a part of the podcast. And we really appreciate Solomon here at the podcast place in Long Beach, California. If you want to get your podcast going, he's your man. Go ahead, Solomon.
Thanks. So, are there any circumstances under which a sponsor would tell you no? Is it like, I've got too many people already, or I don't like you,
definitely one
or
of
something? What other reasons might a sponsor
don't like
tell you
you.
no?
Yes. The answer to that question, and it's a really good question.
Yes.
The answer to that question is yes. There are circumstances. I've had to tell people no at times where for whatever reason, there's like this ebb and flow of sponsees once you start sponsoring somebody. Like maybe you go speak at a meeting somewhere, and next thing you know, you got 6 dudes come up to you after the meeting asking for your phone number, and they want you to sponsor them. And it's like, so there can be, because you got to think about what it is as a sponsor that you're doing when you agree to sponsor somebody. And to me, and everyone's probably different, but to me, that's one of the biggest honors that you could possibly have.
Right.
Is the opportunity to walk somebody through the steps. So I don't take it lightly.
Yeah,
and my
right.
rule is I'll match their intensity, meaning I'm going to work as hard at their recovery as they're willing to work on their own recovery. Right. And sometimes you get a guy that's just starving for it, and they do everything you suggest, and it's great. And that also is a very involved process with your time and all that. So yeah, there are situations where you may get too many sponsees that are actually doing the damn thing. And it's like,
Yeah, you don't have time
I can't give you what you deserve at this moment.
Exactly. You got to be honest with yourself about what you have to offer them
Right.
at that time.
And me personally, if that ever happens, is I'm always sure to follow that up with, I can't do it right now, but you should talk to this dude, and this dude. Right.
We'll refer for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just, hey, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
here,
it's like, wait a second, I already got some
Absolutely.
guys. But usually we got sponsees that are chomping at the bit to do it. So when you really know how to understand something, you're able to teach it. And that's what we're looking for. Because in the program, it's a spiritual axiom is we got to give it away to keep it. So once you're able to teach something, then you really start to know, and then it's really starting to take sinking into you. So definitely great question, Solomon. And I
Thank you.
refuse people often because I don't have the time to do it, and I have to honor that process.
Right.
So I got people that call it 8, 8:15, 8:30, 8:45. That's a time when I'm off of work and I can actually spend that time to do it. And then I have to take them through the steps.
You'll have the other situation where sometimes you might see somebody deny a sponsee is like, say they shared in a meeting and then somebody was like, oh, I really related to that and I want to ask this person to be my sponsor. But that person's, say they're only on their 4th step or something. Even though they shared great, they don't necessarily have the they don't have what it takes yet they haven't reached that 12th step, that where it says we have that spiritual awakening. And so essentially they might be like, no, I can't sponsor you because my sponsor says I can't sponsor people till I get through the 12 steps and I'm only on the 4th. And so that's one of those situations where it's like, I can't give away something I don't have yet.
Right.
And it's kind of along the same lines of what you were talking about, Brett. So,
all right. Well, this is kind of interesting. We're going to go to our first commercial of the Super Sober podcast. So go ahead and hit it, Solomon.
Tired of being told like it is? Still looking for the easier, softer way? Sick of the same old time-tested direction? If so, then you're ready for Rent a Sponsor. No reading, no writing, no deadlines, many models to choose from. Standard features include listening to your sad little story without constant reference to the steps, co-signing your excuses and rationalizations every time, letting you work only the steps you want in the order you choose. Learn the secret of giving it away before you have it. Understand how to talk the talk without walking the walk. Identify ways to look better rather than feel better. Learn how to save your face rather than your ass. Yes, at Rent a Sponsor, we know how unique you are and we understand. Half measures are our specialty. Call 1-900-POUR-ME-1. That number again, call 1-900-POUR-ME-1. Call now and receive your free copy of Staying Sober on War Stories Alone.
somebody's for sure calling that number.
Yeah. So thought we'd throw that in there. And that's a funny thing to chew on like that. And if you want to call the number, maybe someone will actually answer. I don't know. I haven't tried to call myself.
Well, it's a 900 number. I would encourage you not to call that. Because that's probably super inappropriate whenever you get on the
For
other
people
line.
that have been in the program and stuff like that, definitely can relate to all that stuff. So many people are going to try to come in and just run things their own way. So that was a funny little step right there that we actually had wrote and recorded on the first episode we were going to do, but we decided to wait till we talked about sponsorship. So that was definitely pretty awesome there. And man, we got to give that one an air horn right there. Yeah. So we definitely have a little bit of time to go through right here. We covered a lot of ground as usual on the Super Sober podcast. Then we're going to actually get into the book a little bit. So what's a sponsor going to tell you to read usually in the first part of the big book? The program is the first 164 pages of the big book. And in the beginning, we have the foreword. It's going to be a little bit of a history about where we're at. The difference between all of the books is the stories in the background, and especially kind of the forward. Because in the beginning, the program wasn't that big. Now we got millions of members, people giving it away, definitely heritage, lineage, language, legacy, all types of stuff going with the program. So we got sponsors that had sponsors that had sponsors that passed away. I mean, it's unbelievable. How do you get 60 years of sobriety? I remember when I first went to meetings, there was this old timer, and he was just a hoot. He had 55 years of sobriety. He was just fun. He made the meeting. He was there every, at the nooner out there in Rancho Cucamonga. Man, he was super fun. He just made it attractive, and he had got sober pretty young, and it's like 55 years of sobriety, you know, and man, he was just definitely a person of attraction. But one of the things we're going to have you do is we're going to talk a little bit about the doctor's opinion. And that kind of segues back to the beginning of where we were talking about to this non-compliance thing. So when the book was written, they had Dr. Silkworth, who was a prominent doctor. I don't know how prominent he was, but he was a doctor that worked with the addicts and alcoholics back in the 30s. And it's really, really powerful part of the part of the book, whether you're alcoholic or not, if you want to learn a little bit about it. And it goes in and it talks about how helpless and how he felt just powerless over this disease when they were learning how to do it. And then a couple people started practicing the program, and our mentors and the writers of the book had started giving it away like that. And I know there's a lot of history with the Oxford group and the Washingtonians and all that stuff. And we could talk for hours and hours on just the bandwidth of sponsorship and meetings and all that kind of stuff. But we only have a little bit of time left on that. We probably got, like, how much more time do we got, Solomon?
About 7 or 8 minutes.
All right.
Okay. So the doctor's opinion, we'll get into that. It's really powerful read. And it's not just some yahoos that came up with a program and everything. This was a devised process where they were in there, and then the doctor started seeing that the program was working. And he talks about it, and he talks about the phenomenon of craving, and that they were pretty powerless over any kind of idea how to help us in that time and age. And it's really powerful because back then, and even many years after that, if you had this disease or this problem, they could just drop you off at an insane asylum and take away your rights to reproduce, and take away your rights as a citizen, and just drop you off at these places. So it was pretty gnarly. So thank God for people practicing the program and our mentors and the learning curve. So in the doctor's opinion, it really gets into the phenomenon of craving, what it looks like from the medical standpoint. So that's one thing a sponsor will read with you first off, and that's right in the beginning of the first meat and potatoes of this program.
Right in the front of the book. And so I don't know if you can imagine what it would look like in the 30s.
Wow.
I've thought a lot about this though. And just the alcoholic insanity with, at that time, all they were doing is treating symptoms. That's all they could do, is treat symptoms of alcoholism physically, the detox, all that kind of stuff. And they use things like morphine, stuff like that, belladonna treatment, all kinds of shit. If you want to know a little bit, there's like this whole spiritual, there's this whole series of events that occurred that allowed for a 12-step program to come about, period, that ultimately takes people from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body into actually higher functioning than average members of society. And it involves action and lifestyle changes and stuff. But the doctor's opinion that he's talking about is it's in the front of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a good read. And then there's a thing called Central Office. And I was down at Central Office one day, dropping off, I was a treasurer at the time, and I was dropping off some money to Central Office. And they had a library of AA approved literature. And I happened to grab this book, and the book was called I Am Responsible. And I was just kind of talking with the person in there, chatting, and I'd flipped through the book because I'd never seen it before, and I opened it up, and there I turned to this story in this book, and it was called The Little Doctor Who Loved Drunks. And it was a story, not a story. It was about Dr. Silkworth. And if you've never read it and you've been sober a long time, I would really encourage you to read it. I mean, this guy was quite literally an angel on earth for us, people that are afflicted with this disease. I don't know what kind of human being could possibly tolerate the bullshit, the alcoholic chaos and insanity for that long with no apparent solution in sight, and show up day in and day out and just take it on the chin. And keep showing up to try to help us. So anyway, it's a good read. It's called The Little Doctor Who Loved Drunks. It'll give you a little background on the doctor that wrote the doctor's opinion.
Right. There's
like where would we be without that dude?
Dead. Probably dead.
Yeah.
Dead or in an asylum somewhere, or, without.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you kind of
like our boy Jid right here.
Jails, institutions, and death. Shout out to homie. He's locked up today. We didn't get into that one. But homie's locked up today. We were on vacation for a little bit, so he's kind of running wild, running free, but we got him locked up today. So
check him, put him back in there.
Yeah.
So how much time do we got now, Solomon? Do we need to wrap this up a little bit?
About 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes. So let's just segue into a call for action here. Wanted to let everybody know that we to email us. Please give us some feedback. Let us know if we suck or we're great or what you want future episodes to be like.
Topics, please.
Topics. We want you guys to be a part of the community going on here. Get it going. I know a lot of us get straight feedback from people, in the world of recovery. And they're all,
I want to see some YouTube comments.
Yeah, YouTube comments.
Even if they hurt.
We're on all platforms, and we're on YouTube and all streaming platforms for audio. We started an Instagram page, so we got some Instagram reels and YouTube stuff, and you can connect with us on our email, which is info@supersoberpodcast.org or info@f3recovery.org. And that email again is info@supersoberpodcast, all one word, .org, and info@f3recovery.org. Okay. And then I wanted to do a shout out to the streaming series that I wrote called The Detox. It's a story of addiction, the deadliest disease that man has ever known. And that's on the f3recovery.org website. You just scroll down and see The Detox, and you'll see the one sheet there and a quick little, it's a pilot episode. It's never been done before. I want that to be represented. AA does not, or recovery does not have a episode series that's just dedicated to that. So that's hopefully get that out there to anybody out in Hollywood or anything. Mm-hmm. There is a Writers Guild Association strike, so maybe I could sneak in there or something, who knows. But I think we need some kind of representation, right, for the world of recovery to let people know what's going on, how we stay sober, and what it looks like working in treatment. So anything else to add, guys?
You meant to say he stands united with the Writers Guild.
Yeah, stand united. Yeah, stand united and everything. Yeah. So I'm just looking for someone out there maybe that knows somebody or whatever to get it out there. It's something that I've been working on getting into Hollywood or someone to be interested in for a couple of years now. So
just to be clear, this is a script you wrote.
Yeah, this is a script.
Of a potential, and the one of a series
there.
Of a show.
Yep, of a series, of a streaming series, of a show.
And it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's definitely really fun for anybody. That's
when you sit sitting here, like with me sitting here hearing this, I remember the first time I heard about the detox, I was thinking like, shit, that's something I'd watch it. I'd watch it, not just because I'm biased either, but like I would watch that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think it's something that hasn't been done yet. So I back it 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's fun. It's cool. Not just because I wrote it or anything like that. But check it out. The one sheet is on the website. So I feel it's time that we do have some representative. Every other niche thing has a streaming series for it, but why don't we have something for recovery? Something that we could all get together and go, oh my, yes, that was me.
It takes place in a detox. That's like the setting.
Yeah, it's a medical setting. Detox, yes.
Sweet.
So it's the story of when you see intervention, when the whole family gets them into treatment, and then intervention, right? The show on AMC. So it gives you the whole, A&E. So then they say 30, 60, 90 days later, they show them what happened. This is 30, 60, 90 days later. They don't show the story of what happened in treatment.
Right.
Now, so this is that story.
Awesome.
So it's not like breaking traditions or anonymity or anything like that. You're just going to have to take a look at it. So that was something that I really worked on. I told myself after I got my last degree that I was going to work on creativity. And here we are with a podcast, a platform, a series show, and it's just going to keep going. So I have no intention of slowing down. I know we don't. So we appreciate Solomon being here for the podcast and our producer, all of you guys that have given us good feedback, share with family and friends and everything like that. This is 2023. Non-compliance needs to end. We are doing it, and we're just going to keep on keeping on.
Thank you for listening to the Super Sober Podcast. Go to our website at f3recovery.org. That's F3Recovery, all one word, .org. We're turning fight, flight, and freeze into free form and flowing through practicing the 12 steps and staying accountable to change. Don't forget to keep on keeping on.